Hey guys, so welcome back to the Minerva videos, and now I'll be recording the CF lectures for Manikant Mishra sir's classes. And as you can see, the headquarters of Minerva has shifted to SOAK, and so I'm excited to start recording again from campus. And let's get started with the lecture 1, and I'll just try and wrap it up really quickly. It was a almost 2-hour lecture, but hopefully I'll be able to finish things up in maybe 10 or 15 minutes, right? So let's get started quickly and get into the concepts. So yeah, CF, like the topic of CF that we are studying right now, definitely has a base from what Taral sir taught us, and it's just an extension of what was taught earlier, and now it's going into a deeper sense. So obviously, if you have not studied the earlier part, or you're not comfortable with that, just let me know if there is any concept that you want me to cover again, and I'll be happy to make a video on that. Otherwise, it's just an extension of what was taught earlier, and hopefully what is being taught now is again an extension in term 3. Okay, so there are a few concepts that we were taught, even though um, the it might have been long drawn because of the teaching style, but I've tried to summarize the concepts here. So first thing that we are taught is that during Taral's classes, we had read about discounting rate. So what is discounting? Basically, you take the present value of any future cash flow. So there's a cash flow that is coming up in, let's say, after 2 years. So I'll get 100 rupees after 2 years. And now you pull back that cash flow to today's date at the discounting rate. Now, this discounting rate is also known as required rate of return. So what is required rate of return, or RRR? So required rate of return is the return that the investor wants to satisfy its to satisfy himself at a certain risk level for that investment. So there are different types of places where you can invest. Obviously, if it's a place where the risk is more, you want a bigger return, and if the risk is lesser, you're okay with a lower return. Okay, so the formula for a required rate of return, or RRR, is RF plus RP. So RF stands for risk-free rate plus risk premium. Now, what is risk-free rate? So risk-free rate is the rate at which I would get a return even if I invested somewhere where there was no risk. So let's say, so technically the terms that we use for risk-free rate is a treasury bill or a RBI bond. So something that there's no risk of default, there's no other risk associated with that kind of a cash flow. So that is what we use for a risk-free rate. But just to make you understand, let's say fixed deposit interest is a very low risk. So it's certainly not risk-free, but for our understanding and what we see daily life, you can say that fixed deposit interest rates or saving or post office savings bank account interest rate, these are very like risk-free, because there's a very low chance of default because these are government backed and stuff. So fixed deposit interest rate, let's say that the return on the fixed deposit rate was 6%, so that would become my RF. And any return that I get in excess of 6%, so if I get let's say I get a return of 11%, so that 11%, so this 5% in addition to the existing 6% would be my risk premium. Again, risk premium is not risk. Okay, risk premium is the premium that I expect because I'm taking a risk. Okay, if I'm taking a lot of risk, I'll probably expect like 14-15%. But if I'm taking a lower risk, I'll be happy with maybe 8 or 9%. So risk premium is the amount of excess return over risk-free rate that I would I would require. Again, another important word that I missed over here is a minimum rate. So that something sir also mentioned in class was, this is always a minimum rate that the investor would want. Now, as an investor, I am happy to have 8%, but if I get more than 8%, I'll be happy. So this is the minimum amount of return that I'll be happy with, right? So that's it for risk premium. So risk premium is the additional return that I get because I'm taking a risk. if I was investing in a risk-free asset, in that case, I would be happy with 6%. But okay, so as I mentioned, fixed deposit, savings bank account, treasury bills, RBI bonds, which are very secure and there's no risks. Now, what are the types of risks that are associated with any kind of instrument? So there are two kinds of instrument. If I'm sure you're aware right now, so there's a debt instrument or an equity instrument. Now, a debt instrument has three main kinds of risks that it carries. So what are these? The first one is default risk, the second one is liquidity risk, and the third one is maturity risk. Month. Yeah, sorry. So there was an interruption. Let's start. So there are three kinds of risks. First is a default risk, there's a liquidity risk, and the maturity risk. What is a default risk? Default risk is a risk of default by the company that I am borrowing. Like I'm taking a debt instrument, so I'm paying them. I'm investing my money in that instrument. So it's risky that like I'm investing my money in that company, and that company might get default. So that instrument can default. So that's the risk of default. Second one is liquidity risk. Now liquidity risk is so let's say there are two instruments. One instrument is giving a 8% return. Both instruments, in fact, are giving you 8% return, and one instrument has a lower liquidity. It means that let's say it cannot be easily traded. Okay, so let's say for liquidity to like the meaning of the word liquidity is that it cannot be easily converted into known amount of cash, right? So let's say there's no market for that bond. So let's say there are two bonds. One bond can be redeemed at any time, and the second bond can only be redeemed yearly or maybe every 6 months. So if that bond can only be redeemed at the end of 6 months, in that case the liquidity is lower. So for us, if both these bonds are being considered, might be the one with which there is a lower liquidity, I'll expect a more higher return for that. So that's called a liquidity risk. What is maturity risk? Maturity risk is, let's say there are two, so you can relate this to a fixed deposit. Now, a fixed deposit which is for 10 years will have a higher rate of return than a fixed deposit which is for 2 years. Why is that? Because once you put that money in the fixed deposit, that money is locked for 10 years. So if the maturity date is at the end of 10 years, I will expect a higher return because I am blocking my funds in that asset for 10 years compared to 2 years. Okay, so these are the three main risks. Default risk forms the major portion of the entire risk premium. Okay, these three entire things, this constitutes the risk premium. This is why I expect a higher return than the risk-free rate. Okay. There were two more, but I thought people might get confused, so I didn't include them. Now, in case of equity, is there a default risk, liquidity risk, or maturity risk? So what sir told in class was there's no default risk, because in case of an equity asset, or let's say for an equity share, you don't promise something. So for a bond, you promise the bearer of that bond that you will give them let's say 8% per annum return. But for equity, you don't promise anything. You can give them 12%, 13%, 0%, anything. So you don't promise anything. So there's technically no default. Obviously, there is a risk that a company may get defaulted, but that is not covered here. Right? Let's move on to the next concept. So the next concept that was covered was stochastic dominance. So this is something that even I did not know before the class, and even during the class I was not aware of what like sir meant by this. But then I did some research and found that let's say there are these two cases. So first case, there's an asset A and B, and there are three possible scenarios: case 1, case 2, case 3. And now you have to, as an investor, you have to decide which one to choose, right? Now, how would I choose the asset is maybe by calculating the expected rate of return. So calculating the expected rate of return, I would do 15 plus 10 plus 6 divided by 3, then 17 plus 13 plus 7 divided by 3, and then whichever is higher, I would. There's a lot of things that I can do. But if you notice clearly, this first scenario is the case of first order stochastic dominance, FOSD, first order stochastic dominance. What does it mean? That at every case, the return in one of the assets, so in, let's say in this case it's B, so in every case the return in B is higher than A. So here you can see it's 17% compared to 15%, 13% compared to 10%, 7% compared to 6%. So in every case, B earns more than A. So it's very clear in the mind of the investor that, okay, whatever I have to choose it in B, right? Because in all cases, B is better. Now, if you plot the graph, you can also see that the graph of B will always be higher than A. So this clearly shows a stochastic dominance, where whereas in this case, you can see it's 17 is greater than 15, 11 is greater than 10, but then 6 is greater than 5. So here there's no stochastic dominance. So this will be covered later. I'll show you how we would do calculate a risk and return trade-off for this one. Okay, now the sorry. Okay, so the next concept that was covered was someone being an investor being risk averse. So what is the meaning of being risk averse? So risk averse means you don't want to take a risk. Most investors are risk averse and they don't want to take a risk. And the example that I mentioned in class was this one, that you have ₹1 and you and your friend are playing a game. So what I related this to was the game that they played in Squid Games. But again, let's not go into that. Okay, you have ₹1. You can either keep ₹1 or you play a game with me and let's toss a coin. If I put heads, if you get heads, you get ₹2. That is ₹1 extra. And if you get tails, then you get 0, and then I get your ₹1, right? Sorry. So in both cases, so see, it's a toss. So the probability of getting heads or tails is 50-50. So in both cases, the return is 0. So in first case, you had ₹1, you still have ₹1, right? So it's only one case, and the return is 0, so you get 0. And in the second case, so return, what return means is that incremental return. So in you had ₹1, you still have ₹1, so you don't increase anything, right? In the second case, you have a 50% chance of getting. So you have a 50% chance of getting. Yeah. So in the second case, you have a 50% chance of getting ₹1 extra and a 50% chance of losing ₹1. So in both cases, if you combine that and calculate, you'll get 0. Got it? So in this case, a risk averse investor would not want to play that game. Why? Because in both cases, the return is the same. In both cases, I'm getting 0. There's no incremental return for me in both cases. But in the second case, there is a risk. So a return is the same, but risk is more in this case. So a risk averse person will not invest or would not play the game here, because the joy of getting ₹1 extra is less for him compared to the pain of losing ₹1. Okay, so that is why he'll not play this game. Now let's. There was another thing that Sir mentioned was this one, that what was the concept? One second. Yeah, so this is called mean preserved spread. Okay, so I'll write it down, or it's called mean preserved spread, which is basically there's a case number 1 where in case all the 3 scenarios you get 11%, 11%, 11%. So that is the ideal place for a risk averse investor, because irrespective of the cases, you're getting 11%. Now case 2, you're also getting an average of 11. Okay, if you add them up and then you get an average, you're still getting 11%, but then it's a mean preserved variance. So mean is 11 and the variance. So as my variance increases, it becomes more risky for me. And so an investor who is risk averse will not invest, would not like to invest in case 2, case 3, and definitely case 5. Like as it moves further along, they'll not want to invest in that. But case 1, they will be, they would like to invest. Got it. Now let's go to page 3 and yeah. So half of the concepts are covered. Now let's finish the rest of them. So here there are 2 stocks given. Let's say stock A and stock B. Stock A had 20%, 10%, 6%, 17, 16, 30, and 3%. Now, first thing that we would check is a stochastic dominance. So clearly, A is better here, B is better here, A is better here. So there's no clear stochastic dominance. If there was a stochastic dominance like earlier case, in that case, I would clearly say that, okay, there's a stochastic dominance and invest in A or invest in B. Okay, but here there is no stochastic dominance. If I calculate the average return in both cases, it comes to 12%. Now this model says that the return, if the return is the same, choose that asset which has a lower risk. So in this case, both of them have a 12% return. So I have to choose as an investor that asset which has a lower risk. If however the risk was the same, so if there was a case where both of the assets had the equal amount of risk, I would choose the one which had a higher return. So I think this is very clear. I think let's go into this question. So in this case, average return, as we can see, is 12% in both cases. So I will choose that asset which has a lower risk asset. Okay, so let's say that me as an investor, let's forget the average rate of return. Average rate of return is 12%. Me as an investor, I want 11%, which is my required rate of return, and that is given in the question that okay, I want 11%. So for me, at 11%, what is the risk? So what is the risk? For the first case, I'm getting +9. So I'm getting 20%. 20 minus 11 is 9. 10 minus 11, so I'm getting 1 rupees less, 1% less, 5% less, 6% more, 5% more, 8% less. Right? Now, if you want to calculate the risk, there are 2 methods. So let's discuss the first method where we were just taking the probability of risk. So in the case number A, there are 2 possible scenarios out of 3 where I am at a loss, or my rate of the return that I'm getting is lower than my expected rate of return. So in that case, my probability for the first case would be 2 by 3, and the probability for the second case would be 1 by 3. Now, when it comes to stage number 2, what I did was, this was in an inefficient system, because in this case, I'm just taking the probability. But ideally, I should take the probability multiplied by the degree of variance. So you can see that 1 by 3 into -1. So this is a very small variance. This is also very small variance, 1 by 3 into -5. So you can 1 by 3 into -5, 1 by 3 into 1, and you get -2. Whereas in this case, 1 by 3 into -8 gives you 2.67 compared to 2, which is more. So this case, I can see that, okay, stage 2 of, like, this is not stages exactly, but let's say case number, like the first process that we're doing just based on probability, as getting a more risky, A as a riskier asset. But now I see that, okay, B is a riskier asset. Now in the second case, what we do is we square the variance. So what happens when we square the variance is, firstly, the, sorry, I plug my charger once. Okay, so as I was saying that when we square the variance, there are 2 things that happen. So first thing is that the negative gets cancelled out and get the positive value, and second thing is that the variance gets amplified, and so the difference, which here it was only 2 and 2.27, 2.67, now it's 26 by 3 compared to 64 by 3. So the variance is a lot more. So I can see that, okay, from this I can conclude that stock B or asset B is riskier if I'm looking for a return of 11%. Okay, now what this entire concept is called is LPM, or lower partial moment, or semi-standard deviation. So this is also something new that I learned today. So what lower partial moment is, here if you notice, we are only taking the squares of the variance that are negative values. Yeah, so sorry for the breaks in between, but I'm recording in Minecraft, so that is natural. Once again, I think lighting. Okay, so where were we? So first, so we realized that by making the square of the variance, you can get a more accurate depiction of which is the more riskier thing. And so I was explaining, I think, this lower partial moment. So here you can see that we are taking the negative figures only and not the positive figure. So this is called a lower partial moment, where you take the negative figures and then you square them up. And alternatively, you can also use one sec. Yeah, so alternatively you can also use the variance, like you can take all the variances, but that only works when there is like a standard normal distribution. So it's like 9% increase can also be 9% decrease, and so don't have to worry about that. So I've made that as well. So if you had taken all the variances, so here we have taken only the negative ones, which is the lower partial moment, and these are the positive ones. So you can see 9 into 1/3, -1 into 1/3, -5 into 1/3, and so on. So if you total them up, you'll get 1. So here you can see, because the return was the same, so in both cases you're getting 12. Both are the same. And again, you can use the square of the variances, and you'll see that again risk is higher in this one. So these are the two main differences, different approaches. One is using the mean difference, and the second one was using this one, lower partial moment. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the last concept now. Okay. So I forgot to mention this. So in case like in this case, we have seen that there's a 12% return. So if both the shares have 12% return, the one which has the lowest variance, that will be considered as for an investor, that will be better, because the variance is lower. So this is more risky. So I'll take this one because my chances of getting that return is higher. Okay. So this is the last concept where sir ended the class. So this concept says that, okay, these are the returns on asset A, these are the returns on asset B, and should I invest? So based on the above analysis, I realized that, okay, this is at least, like, A is less risky than B. So should I invest everything in A, or should I invest everything in B, or should I invest in a portfolio of stocks? So by the logic of the earlier examples, I should invest everything in A, because A is giving me the same return, and B is giving me a same return but at a higher risk. So I'll definitely not invest in B only. I may invest in A only, but there's a concept of benefit of diversification. So what benefit of diversification is that maybe there are two industries, right? So this concept is under the branch of portfolio management, where instead of investing in one stock, you invest in two stocks. So portfolio A and portfolio B. Sorry, like stock A and stock B. You make a portfolio of that, and you invest your money in there. And what happens is that in case A goes down, B might. So if A goes down, B might go up. If A goes up, B might go down. So kind of it balances the movement. If I had only A, if A went down, I was in a loss completely. But in this case, what if even if A goes down, half of my money, let's say, is invested in B, and if B even stays stable, half of my money is saved. Okay, so that's the benefit of diversification, and you get a better risk return trade-off. So in what ratio would you invest in A and B? That is what sir will cover in the next class. So this is it for this video. I'll stop sharing and I'll share the notes as well as the video on with you guys, and you can refer to that. If you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me, and hopefully you watch the videos on time, and like these concepts will get recurringly more difficult as the classes go on. So I think I intended it to be maybe 15-20 minutes, but might have exceeded that. But let's say I hope the videos help you guys, and I'll be making more videos. Please also, if anyone of you want to make videos for other subjects like OM, ME, and others, so definitely please make those videos. It will help the entire batch. And yeah, so that's it for the video. Now I have to go and have fun at some committee. It rhymes with dead, but some small committee is there and they have an event. So I'll go and have look at the events. So fun aside, like go and have fun also, but please keep studying, because most probably the the exams might be offline. So let's see. Yeah. So thank you for watching. I hope you like the video. I'll keep making the videos. If there are mistakes, there might be mistakes because it's a new teacher and I'm still getting used to what the approach he's following. But I'll try to make the videos and try to simplify them as much as possible. Thank you for watching.